Hi, everyone. Welcome to VS Code with Green Screen Developers Session 2BE. I will hand it over to your speakers now. Have a good session. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to our session, which is called VS Code for Green Screen Developers. My name is Jesseline Punongbayan, and I'm a product marketing engineer and a Zoe Explorer squad lead.
And my name is Rochelle Ancro. I'm a senior software engineer and also serving as Zoe Explorer Scrum Master.
All right. So before talking about VS Code, let's talk about mainframe development. Just a brief reference once again. So when you say mainframe, you immediately think of big machines like in a data center. Maybe dated back in the 70s, maybe look like this. And these machines uses big tapes that is probably outdated. And today, that's not simply not true. Mainframes today look like this. And at their core, mainframes are high performance computers with large amounts of memory and processors that process billions of simple calculations and transactions in real time.
So there has been some modernization done on the hardware itself, but mainframe still encounters these challenges. So we've identified three, and first of all is the people. So as the mainframe workforce continues to age and retire, there's a skills shortage coming. But not only that, as I'm a mainframer, I have worked with mainframe, but I've also noticed that there's challenge within processes. There's an old way of working and they're considered state of the art, but they are now outdated. And another challenge is traditional tools that don't appeal to next generation developers, or for me, a mainframer, it doesn't provide me with high productivity. So what are these traditional tools that we like to call them? So if you want to develop a mainframe, the first thing that you need to learn is how to use a green screen or 3270 screen.
So this is a 3270 screen. And, first 3270, it originated like say a 3270 terminal. So this is like a simple computer with a keyboard, but this is the screen that they are using. So when you do a mainframe development, you open the screen and you use it. You normally use it to write code in mainframe, whether you're coding in COBOL or Rex and assembler. This is what you use, this 3270 screen. And we call it, or it's a form of an IDE. I want to call it an IDE, that allows you to connect to files, submit scripts, access to a database, transfer files through FTP, and so many things. And the screen is a text-based, so you can use function keys. You can use your PF3 to go back or PF9 to switch screens. And you can use command like here I'm trying to use F for a command to find, or you can use highlight to highlight your code. And there are so many capabilities that you can do in this screen. But today, when you go to but today, mainframe has modernization, and it has been one of the goals for a few years in mainframe. And as you see here in the screen, we have Open Mainframe Project, and Open Mainframe Project has Zoe, and this is one of the open source project for mainframe modernization, and it is run by Linux Foundation.
So part of this modernization is the incorporation of the next generation environment. So this is how usually a high velocity developer toolchain looks like. So most developers start or spend most of their day in code editors such as VS Code, which is the most popular IDE nowadays. The reason for its popularity is because it has this principle of any language, any platform design. Other IDEs such as Eclipse or IntelliJ, they're very language specific, and whereas VS Code would be is designed with any platform, any language in mind. It's also very popular because Git is popular, and there's a very good synchronization between the two. So Git is the de facto standard for version control nowadays, and it also grew with the open source movement. So that's why this cockpit part of the next gen environment is very tied together, and it's very popular nowadays. But there are also tools that next gen developers or in the next gen environment is widely used. They use platform-based CLIs and SDKs, such as Gulp, Jenkins, Jest, etc. So if there's a high productivity environment, all of these are used together. And now the question is, why not use this for mainframe development as well? So today, that's what we want to share and discuss with you all. How does all of these tools relate to mainframe development? So we're focusing on VS Code extensions today. And if you go to the VS Code marketplace and just search for the word mainframe, you will see a bunch of extensions like this. So you would see Zoe Explorer, which is the project that we're working on, as well as other extensions maybe built on top of Zoe Explorer or relating to your mainframe access connection to ZOS via VS Code. So zooming in into one of these mainframe extensions, we see Code4Z. So this is an extension pack from Broadcom, but this is just to give you an example of what a mainframe stack would look like. So this pack contains COBOL language support, which assists with COBOL language. So it provides highlighting, semantic capabilities, copybook support. You can fetch copybooks within your VS Code. There's also high-level assembler support, macro definitions. The core of this is Zoe Explorer. So you can access your ZOS datasets, Unix file systems, submit JSLs, view and download job output, and issue TSO commands. Another big part of coding is debugging, and this pack also contains a debugger for mainframe. So you can have your full debugging experience through the IDE debug window. And after your code, you can retrieve, browse, search, and edit elements that are based in Endeavor. So that takes care of some of your version control management. So this is just one example, and there are a lot of other extensions that does this, and you can build on top of while you're working within your VS Code IDE.
All right, so why not let's have this comparison as to what's the difference between coding via 3270 and coding via VS Code. So I wanted to show you how to code in 3270, but I'm having a hard time with my VPN. But let me try one more time. If I could connect. So give me 1 second, please. All right, let me share my screen. Let me share my screen again. So I'm having a hard time connecting with the 3270, but let me just share it with you. So, well, this is a 3270, as you can see. And whenever you connect to a 3270, you normally have this session. So let's try this session. If I could, all right, great. I could connect now. So you enter your username and password here. You're given your own screen. You go to your, let's say, main page in this screen, so the ISPF screen. So you have your own menu. So you can go to P, you can go to 3.4 if you want to access your data sets, something like this. So let's say I have here a data set called PDSE. I could use B to browse it, I could E to edit it. I could have my highlight on if highlight off if I want to, or highlight on if I want to. So and you can use your PF function. So PF8, to go down, PF7 to go up, PF3 to exit. And you can also use some commands like, I think this one, if you want to indent it into, let's say, 3, indent it into 3, or go back the indentation to 3. So this is how you code, or this is how you use 3270 when you do your mainframe development. So here I'm editing a GCL. So now let's have a comparison as to how you use your VS Code in editing your COBOL program. So let me open my VS Code. So with this VS Code screen, so I installed my VS Code in my machine, and in here I have my extensions. So these are the extensions that I have in my machine, and I have here Zoe Explorer installed. And this extension, or this mainframe extension, allows me to do the same thing that I've done in ISPF. So I could access my dataset, I could issue USS, I could access my USS files, I could view my jobs pool, and I could also issue commands such as TSO and MPS. So, and you can see it here in the activity bar that I have my Zoe installed here. And similar to what I did here in my 3270, I have my connection details, so which we call profiles. So I have here a zcobol profile, and in here it contains all of my connection information, which is the host, port, user, password, um, things like that. And all I have to do is, let's say, click this search search button, and I could search my dataset. So it's similar to 3.4. I could open my dataset. I could search for the dataset that I want. I could click on this, and then maybe open a COBOL program. I wanted to see this, and I have my highlighting on. In Zoe Explorer, the highlighting is not part of it, and so I have to install another extension. So you can install a different extension, whatever is available for you. You can just search for the word mainframe, like what we showed you before, and these are all the mainframe extensions that you can download. So there's IBM Z Open Editor. There's a COBOL control flow. So what I use for the highlighting, I use COBOL LS. Here, the COBOL language support, and it gives me that highlighting that I want for this program. And what I like about using VS Code is that if I have, let's say, let me go back and open this program. And if I have copybooks, for example, I have here, I could just hit control and hover on this copybook, and it will show me what it looks like inside. I don't have to go through the copybook dataset just to check it out. I could just control, maybe I could click on it. When I click on it, it will automatically open this one. And let's say I'm trying to I'm having this I miss a period in a program, and a period is very important when you do a COBOL programming. So there are linting features as well that allows me or shows me that I have a problem, that there's something here, and I'm expected to be using, let's say, a period. So I could just immediately fix that without running the compile GCL that I have for this program. And what else? So let me search for my GCL. So I didn't. So I have this. So I have a filtering, and what I could do is just put a wildcard here because I wanted to search also for my GCL. So it will open both my COBOL programs and as well as my GCL dataset. So I have it. I have it here, and I wanted to submit this COBOL 13. So this is my GCL for that program. And here I have also highlighting for my GCL, which is a separate extension as well, which is the GCL language support. And in Zoe Explorer, you are able to do a right click and do other things. So you can actually refresh your copy. If somebody updated your GCL in the ISPF, you can just pull from mainframe and then update your copy here, or you can submit a job. You can edit your member, rename it, or delete it if you want. So I will submit this one. And if I click that, it will just show me that the job submitted, and this is the job ID. So if I miss this message, what I have to do is just to open this bell icon, and you'll be able to see all the messages that was submitted to you before. And you can click on this job ID. And if you click on this, it will automatically open here into the jobs tree. And if I expand this, I could see that the executed job ended in 04. So I could just expand on this. Let me refresh that again. So I could expand on this and see my output. That this is the result of that execution. Maybe I have a sysout in here. Or these are the displays that I have in the program. There's a sysprint here. Um, I could, if this job is a long running job, I could issue the modify command, or I could issue actually a stop command if I want to do it here. Or, I could download the spool and share it with somebody if somebody's asking for the results of this job, or delete the job if I want to. And this is how I use actually VS Code. But other than that, what I could do is I could have my own project. And with this project, let me open my folder. So I could have my own project where I can execute scripts. So other than the extension, the features of the extension, I could actually use Zoe CLI to create my own scripts. So here I have my package JSON file. Maybe if you could see it, that would be awesome. So there are several scripts that I could run. So as you can see here, I could submit a job using this one. Zoe submit job, and this is the job GCL that I wanted to submit, and automatically I want to output it into this directory, and I'll just use this profile, and I could upload the data or allocate an input using Zoe CLI commands. And with that, I could actually combine all of these scripts into one whole script, which is maybe this one, COBOL challenge. It will automatically run this upload data, this one, and run the COBOL GCL. So all I have to do, that if I go back here, is click on this run button. I'm gonna go here, and let's say I want to do COBOL challenge, and then click on this. And if I click on this, it automatically creates a task for me and submits all of these commands that I want to submit. And I don't have to go outside of VS Code. Everything is like done for me in this one IDE. And another thing that we could do is what we call key binding. So if I could, I think. So there are keyboard shortcuts here. And for me, I use Control-Shift-C to compile my COBOL program. And that just simply means that it's running a compiled GCL that I have in my mainframe, but I use it here. So it's just a key binding here in my keyboard, and then it automatically submits that Zoe command to submit my compile GCL, and it will show me here in the terminal what is the result, something like this. And then it doesn't stop there. So these are just say the tip of the iceberg, and you can definitely integrate all of these commands, all of these features in another open source project or in another open source tool. The other thing that I've done is to have a Circle CI. And Circle CI is similar to a Jenkins. So you create a pipeline in Circle CI, and you create this config YAML file. And this config YAML file are just a series of steps on how you want to, let's say, build your project. So here, what I did is that I wanted to run Zoe command. So I installed Zoe. I run my compile script. So I have my package.json as you've seen earlier. And then it runs the compile scripts that I have, creates my own program, and then let's say run the submit job. So from the package.json, I created this config YAML file that I could open in Circle CI, and I have it here. I have my Circle CI extension. I click on that, and then I have my build process here. So what I could do is just click on this button, and it automatically goes to Circle CI, which is this one. This is the pipeline that I have. And you can see that the test is executed here, and also the output is downloaded here. And this pipeline runs on Docker. So they prepare the Docker environment for me automatically. I just need to tell them that I need Zoe to be installed here and create my profiles and then run my test. So these are the things that you can do, at least the things that I could show you that I could do through VS Code and all of these open source tools that we have. All right, so let me reshare my PowerPoint once again.
Thanks, Jelly. That looks great. But most of the things that we've shown here are already pre-made, and they are for certain use cases. And those are samples of just a use case that we usually use. But what if I have a use case that we didn't cover, that I want to use Zoe Explorer, but it doesn't cover my use case? I think in this next section, we will show how you can extend this open source framework tools for your own use case. So specifically, we're going to talk about Zoe Explorer. And there are many ways to extend your use of Zoe Explorer. So it's not just your ISPF screen with access to jobs, USS files, and datasets. So you can create extensions on top of Zoe Explorer to add more functionalities to it. So the first type is a general extension. So this is just a generic VS Code extension that utilizes Zoe Explorer resources in any way. So let's go to the example. So one example of a general extension or generic extension is the JCL language report. So we've seen a clip of this earlier, where the JCL language reports provides an interface in VS Code for developers and system administrators to interact with your JCL. But the thing is, you can open a JCL within your VS Code using Zoe Explorer, and then use the JCL language report on top of it. So it integrates with the CA-JCL check workload automation just to ensure quality. So it doesn't have its own UI, but it added functionality on top of Zoe Explorer. So that's why it's an extension of your use case. So I can see code snippets in my VS Code, but with another extension, I can add more functionality to it, like JCL checking before I submit the job. So that's just one another use case of using VS Code extensions with your mainframe job. So the next part is an extension accessing profiles. So profiles within the Zoe environment means it's your connection details. And within Zoe Explorer, we have management of profiles, and we have a profiles cache where you can read or write connection details and update them and manage them through Zoe Explorer. So if you have your own extension, or if you have your own profile type, which is not the default ZSMF, for example, you can also extend Zoe Explorer to access that same profiles cache. You don't have to re-implement anything, but you can use the same functions and access your own functionalities with those profiles. So if you need a secure connection, for example, there's specific APIs for accessing the secure credential store. So everything is secured by default. And you can also use this package without using VS Code. So you can get this via NPM package and use it via Zoe CLI, etc. So let's look at some examples. So one example of this, one such extension that's extending Zoe Explorer is the Kix Explorer. So the Kix Explorer adds a functionality As you can see, there's a separate tree that they've provided. So aside from the datasets, USS, and jobs, they have their own Kix tree, and you can create your own Kix session, create your own connection. But at the same time, they are using our functions, so Explorer's APIs, to create, add, delete their profiles. So the Kix extension is very interesting because you can now perform actions such as new copy or face in directly from the UI. You can access your Kix environment, and using the tree, I can, for example, create edit my COBOL program and then submit my JCL and then test that in the Kix environment immediately, do a new copy, etc. So that's just another example of an extension to a use case from Zoho Explorer. So the third part is a data provider extension. So the default ZOS communication protocol for Zoho Explorer is ZOSMF. But in case you don't have access to your ZOSMF in your system, there's another protocol that you can use, or you can implement your own. For example, the example that we have here is the FTP extension. So the Zoho Explorer extension for FTP, it's maintained by our squad, Zoho Explorer squad. So it provides capability to Zoho Explorer functionalities, but instead of using the default ZOSMF, it uses FTP connection. So it registers new API instances. For example, the submit job, instead of going through the ZOSMF APIs, it uses FTP connection APIs. So if you can imagine that if you have another API implementation of connection to ZOS, you can also build that on top of Zoho Explorer. The one thing I would also like to point out here is that whenever there are changes to Zoho Explorer APIs, we make sure that it works with this extension, ZFTP extension. So this is a good starting point if you want to implement something similar. And from here, you can really imagine all the other functionalities and use cases you can build on top of Zoho Explorer.
And the last example, or at least the last one that we can think of extending Zoho Explorer, is to add menus. So it means that you create an extension and you want to inject new menus into the existing Zoho Explorer tree, and you access that to the contextual information from the tree nodes. And this is one example of it. So I have here the Zoho Explorer screen, and I wanted to inject this to two commands. So we have the generate mass data or set configuration. And by the way, if you want to create your own extension, you can just visit Visual Studio Code. You can get started, and your first extension, there are instructions there on how you could create your own extension. You can start. They're gonna give you a start project. The code is already there, and all you have to do is code it. And you can start with this. You can just start with adding a new menu in Zoho Explorer. And to be able to do this, all you have to do is to set up your configuration. So what I've said, that the commands could be added based on our contextual information. So it's all part of our documentation. You can check our documentation in our Zoho Explorer repository, our extending docs. And every instruction or all of the things that you need to know are there. So for me to be able to add those commands, I just added here in this context that these are the regular expressions that I need to include, and it will automatically, once I install this extension in my VS Code, the command will automatically be added in Zoho Explorer based on this. But extending menus, that's one part of it. And VS Code in general, if you think about it, it's something that is installed in your workstation. But it's not limited to that. VS Code today can also be part of your cloud environment. And today we're going to talk about cloud IDEs.
So I think one of the advantages for me of working with VS Code is working in just my browser. And one such example of something that works in the browser but has the same look and feel as a VS Code is Eclipse Che. So the concept of Che is it's a shared workspace and that it's already pre-built for you. It's open source, Kubernetes native. It supports several languages, including COBOL, and it incorporates tools such as Git and SSH. It's built with frameworks such as Docker, and the advantage is that it's open source and extensible via public APIs. So it allows you to integrate your own tools. So the next thing that we want to say is you can build your own Eclipse Che. So there are several ways, many options. You can build it on OpenShift, Amazon Elastic Compute Cloud, Google Cloud, Azure, or locally. So there's a blog sharing how to build your own Eclipse Che locally. It's an easy install recipe. So as you can imagine, since it's run on a container, it's containerized. Anything that you build with just your configuration can also be shared with other team members. So once you've built your Eclipse Che, this is what you would see. So you can get started immediately with Eclipse Che, create your own workspace, custom workspace. But as you can see here, there's a mainframe basic stack release. So if I click that, it would contain the Code4Z stack that we said earlier, along with, so you have already your Zoho Explorer, other extensions on top of it, and the onboarding itself would be easier for me. So as even if I'm a mainframe developer, I can use it. If I'm new to it, the onboarding that I will go through would be easier because everything is configured for me. I know the extensions that I don't need to know each extension to install it. Everything is set up for me, and I just need to log in through my browser. So this is how it looks like. As you saw, it's the same look and feel as what Jelly showed when she was doing some coding using her Visual Studio Code desktop version. So that's just one example. So other emerging cloud IDE is GitHub Codespaces, and this is powered by Visual Studio Code technology. So it gives you this fully featured cloud-hosted dev environment, spins up in seconds, and you can use it directly within GitHub. So you can start contributing right away. So the concept of Codespaces is a virtual machine. So again, it's hosted on Azure. You have a Docker container development. And what's great about this is it contains a clone of your source code. So you can actually access it even with your VS Code desktop or through the browser. And you can set up your container to contain not just your repository, but other extensions that you want to use with that repository. So it's specific to your project. So it's easy to get started. You just need to set up this JSON file, and you can see that I've specified extensions that I want to see there. The base would be Zoho Explorer, and you can add additional extensions on top of it. Can we go to the next slide? So this is just showing how easy it is. So in the GitHub, I just clicked Codespaces, and it would prepare everything for me. So again, it spins up a VS Code look and feel. I have my COBOL program connected to the repository, and it has highlighting because I have COBOL language support built, configured to run in the same environment.
All right, so the last example that we have for this cloud IDE is Gitpod. And this is a container-based development platform, and it provisions ready-to-code development environments in the cloud accessible through your browser and your local IDE. And similar to the Codespaces, you have your own configuration. So I have here the Gitpod YAML file, and I'm able to, let's say, specify the commands that I wanted to execute when I provision my environment, my Gitpod environment. And here I wanted to install all the plugins before I even start using the Gitpod environment and also the extensions that I wanted to install. I could show that to you now. So let me let's go to my GitHub repository. So let's go here and we can see this one. So here I have my Gitpod YAML file. Yeah, I have my commands. I have my extensions that I want to install. And I also have a Chrome extension. And this Chrome extension give me this button here that it says Gitpod. And if I click this one, what it does is that it asks me where I could log in. So you can use GitLab, GitHub, or Bitbucket. So I'll use GitHub in this one. And then it automatically creates a Docker environment. So they have default configuration for the Docker environment that you want. Normally, it's enough for me to work on the project that I want. So I open that modern mainframe repository, and it will create this Docker environment for you. And as you can see here, it automatically runs all the commands that I specified in my configuration. So it runs this one, it installs all of these, and then if I check on the extensions that I have these are the installed extensions that I have, which I also specified here in my YAML file. And the beauty of this Gitpod is that you can register and it's free to use in a specific amount. You know, there's a specific amount of, let's say, MB that is free for you. If you want more, then you can definitely pay for it and maybe subscribe to them. But you can try this out today and play with it and see if this is something that is useful for you.
So there are some benefits to Cloud IDE. I would say that most of the time I use VS Code as a desktop installation, but I see the benefit of using Cloud IDEs, and also that there's some migration happening from desktop install, or in some environments, in some shops, there's no way to install it as a desktop item. So if I'm not an administrator, I cannot install software, but still I can use VS Code and tools on top of it, extensions on top of it, to connect to my mainframe and use the benefits that we've seen. So it empowers next generation of developers. And not just that, if I'm not new, if I'm a mainframer, I can still use the tools that we've seen to really increase my productivity. And the tools that we've seen and frameworks that we've seen are familiar to those next gen developers. So they already use these tools to do Java coding. So why not also teach them to use this with mainframe languages and mainframe tools. So another benefit is consistency across an enterprise. So since the configuration is shared, we know that there's a common set of processes and practices. So we can install the same kind of extensions. There's zero client install and simplifies the onboarding process. Definitely, this is, I think, one of the biggest advantages. And it reduces maintenance costs since everything is hosted centrally. There's also enhanced security because none of the data is copied to my workstation. Everything is hosted in the cloud. So what we've shared today is the integration of modern tools with mainframe. So we've seen Zoe at its core, but we've also seen VS Code, Eclipse, GitHub, and other stuff that we can integrate in the whole coding process. So not just in development, there's continuous integration, there's collaboration. There's collaboration with Git. And I think this is the core. If you're a new developer, you already know some of these tools, and so it's easy to integrate the mainframe environment. But if you're used to mainframe environment, you can definitely use all of these tools. Most of them are open source, or if not, they're free to use. And the power of this off-platform open source tools can be integrated with your existing mainframe environment.
All right. So, what are the next steps? For me, my suggestion for after this call, after this session, the next steps that you can do is one, investigate. So there are so the Zoe project is a free software and there are a lot of open source tools that you can try on. Try to investigate. Try it out, in maybe first use the Zoe Explorer. Maybe you can register in the Cobol course, you can try out those things and use Zoe Explorer and then integrate Zoe CLI in your coding and maybe use Circle CI or maybe use that cloud IDEs just so you will be familiar with it. And then the next step would be to innovate. I really believe that one of the most effective form of learning is innovation. So when you're not familiar with all these technologies and you've tried it out, try to innovate, try to invent something, maybe implement some feature, implement some functionality, or add a command in Zoe Explorer. Try to extend Zoe Explorer and add a simple command. I think that's a great way to learn more about this modern mainframe toolings. And then after you've done that, you can advocate, you know, pass it on and share it with others. It could be sharing your work to others or maybe giving your feedback to the Zoe team. Um, I think it's very helpful you to receive your feedback and your opinions about how to improve the platform better or maybe what do you like about it and what are the things that you think should be added into into our extension. So these are the things that I believe that you should do afterwards. And in conclusion, I believe that development in 3270 is not a bad thing. So for me, everybody should learn how to use the 3270 screen because I think it's very, very helpful. But also, in my opinion, providing modern tooling expands the capabilities of mainframe technology. It opens a lot of opportunities. Um, Seeing these things like integrating it to open source tools, using VS Code as my IDE, even using the cloud environment to have my IDEs there is something that piques my interest. It gives me a lot of opportunities to think on how to innovate mainframe more, on how I could create certain tooling so to integrate it to mainframe to make my development more interesting. And honestly, with all of these technologies in front of me, the only limitation that I have is my imagination.
That's great. Um, so these are some references that we have in case you're interested to find out more. There's a great Medium Zoe blog and also a modern mainframe Medium blog where members of the open mainframe community are sharing what they're doing, what they're learning, what we're building. So this is a great way to see step by step how to's, but also some roadmaps. And this is a great way or great platform to share your feedback as well as the Slack channel. So I'm Jalen are part of the Open Mainframe project Slack. So if you want to reach out, we're there. But also not just us, but there's a great community. I enjoy being part of the Open Mainframe community because everyone's helpful. And participation doesn't mean building something. You can ask questions, try it out, and provide your feedback. I think that's a really great way to be part of this community. Almost all of the solution demos and webinars from Open Mainframe are uploaded to their YouTube channel. So if you want to browse previous talks, they're uploaded here. And I would really encourage everyone to check out the community. It's a great way to see how modernization of mainframe is done using these open source tools and integration of open source and open first approach to development.
So thank you so much for attending our session, and please do provide us your feedback. You can do it online here, or you can scan this QR code and give us your feedback. And thank you so much once again for attending this. And if you have questions, please feel free to ask.
Thank you very much. There is a question in the chat about is there mainframe sysprog work to be done? To activate any IDE in a mainframe, are there sysprog activity installs configurations required before we can activate a new IDE such as Zoe?
So the question, let me repeat the question. So the question is that, are there any other configuration
On the
to
mainframe?
activate in the mainframe? So it depends. So if you want to connect through ZOSMF, then yes, you need to configure ZOSMF in a mainframe so that the instance, the user, the host and the port will be available for you to access. But if you don't have ZOSMF, you can definitely just use FTP. Um, there's a there's a specific version of FTP that you can use in order to access the mainframe, but there are no configuration as far as I know. As long as you have that specific version of FTP in mainframe installed, you can definitely use the VS Code immediately by using an FTP profile. But please, Rochelle, if you know more information, please correct me if I'm wrong.
I think you've covered it. As long as ZSMF is set up, accesses to that is set up, then it's just a matter of entering your connection details in your IDE and you're good to go.
Yep. And it's the same with
So-
with the Cloud IDE. You know, you don't need any configuration, additional configuration in mainframe. You can just start it up.
And I've pasted the link to our documentation on how to configure that ZSMF for Zoe.
Thank you. And earlier on, there was one of the attendees had said they didn't necessarily agree that the aging workforce is relevant in the UK because they've been outsourcing to a younger workforce for 20 years. The retirement argument should be retired. I agree, it's far more relevant for US companies though. So that's just a difference of opinion on the aging workforce, but the modernisation or the giving anybody the confidence of autocomplete and some of the other features of the solutions that you found, I think, are pretty relevant regardless of workforce age. You know, I'm in my 50s, but I wouldn't be without a smart editor and autocomplete and Sonar Lint these days. You know that it's those things aren't necessarily about age; they're about being more productive or being more confident with the quality of the software I'm creating. So there's an element of it. It's not just about age, is it? It's about being better, faster, and more confident, more empowered.
Yeah, I agree.
So fantastic. Thank you very much. And for the attendees, this is session 2BE for feedback, and really appreciate the contribution that you've made for the presentation, Jesse and Rochelle. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Have a good GSE to all the attendees for the final day today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.